Hello, Anthony. You are up first, sir.
Hey Bart, thanks for having me.
No problem, buddy. You got a hand for us?
Yep, from a couple weekends ago at Philly Rivers.
Philly Rivers. Man, we get a lot of Philly calls. And as I said before, didn't get a chance to go to Philly Rivers. Just went to the parks. But okay, so Philly Rivers.
Yep, it's 1-3, 500 cap, eight-handed.
Okay.
In this hand, the it's just me and another gentleman. He was in +1 and he straddled, which is $6.
Okay.
There was a limp from the hijack and then folded all the way around to me in the small blind. I had about 700 in the stack and he covered me.
Okay.
I had ace of clubs, king of diamonds, and made it $25.
So one limp over the straddle pot, go to 25 out of the small blind, 136. Okay.
And just a straddle called. The limper folded.
So straddle cold calls. What's the deal with this guy? Anything of note?
I know I remember I played with him once, but it wasn't very long. But I know he plays 2-5 a little bit. He was actually waiting for a new 2-5 table to open. Sometimes they only have one 2-5 going there, and then maybe like four names trying to get a second one going or something. But we had been playing at the table for about 2 hours. He was all right, pretty straightforward.
I teach some of these tips, like some really sort of easy ways to like look at poker, and especially pre-flop too, to clean up some pre-flop. I talk about not cold calling, three bets, in general, kind of like opening, and then I have some overlimping strategies. This is kind of interesting because I don't know if I'm ever going to play a hand here from the straddle spot as a cold call to your raise in the small blind, right? Because he's in the middle, he can drive that limper out, because a lot of times the limper is going to call, and then he's in the middle, he's got position over you. Maybe if I was deeper, there might be some flat call hands, maybe, but I think I would be playing a three better fold strategy quite a bit in this
Yeah,
particular spot. But I mean, it's 1-3, so
right. And
yeah,
at the moment before we got to the flop or anything, I was like, starting to think, okay, what's he just going to call with this guy there and
right.
or that limper? So, but if you want to go to the flop,
Yep, yeah, go ahead.
all right. So it is ace of hearts, king of clubs, jack of clubs.
Ace of hearts, king of clubs, jack of clubs.
And I do have the ace of clubs.
So you got top two.
Yes.
Okay.
So I lead out, or not lead.
No, you
I
did.
was just laughing at you saying that to the other gentleman.
Well, he was saying he was leading like last act.
Yeah.
I would say you could lead. I mean, usually he's leading the razor, but
Right.
yeah.
I bet $30,
Okay.
and he called.
So this is interesting in terms of sizing, because you guys are like kind of like the equivalent of 100 BBs deep with live sizing with the straddle. This will sometimes hit this, but honestly, if I think a three bet's coming from ace king and a three bet's coming from jacks, kings, and aces here, you're really only concerned about queen 10. And if he plays that, there's only four combos, right, of the suited variety. I don't care about his pairs. You're not going to get action from like eights or nines anyway. So I might just tend to size up here, especially because of the way that people sort of construct, like they like to play like suited aces and things like that. So even though like this is where if you were like plug it into a solver, I can kind of make a better adjustment than a solver can make based upon live tendencies. And that's kind of what I think this guy's range is. He's not going to call with nines or eights. So I probably would have gone actually kind of full pot here, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was one of the things I wanted to ask about, is because I feel sizings just in general in any situation is something that I probably can do better with, and just was trying to get better with those. So definitely glad to hear that feedback.
Yep.
He did call. It was pretty quick, not like snap call or anything like that. But and then in the turn, it was about 160 in the pot roughly now.
Okay.
After that, so the turn's a queen of clubs.
Queen of clubs. So it puts a flush draw, puts in the flush, and it's a one liner now to a 10.
Right. So if he not sure how sticky would be with things like king 10, jack 10, or any pair with a 10, basically.
Yeah.
You can definitely have like ace 10 off, I guess, if he wants to flat that pre-flop, thinking he had position, but I'm not sure. But either way, I didn't think it made much sense for me to bet, so I checked, and then he bets only 50, which I felt was kind of small.
It's interesting here on the turn. I mean, you'd think like as a gut reflex, it's like a check, right? I find it interesting because you have the ace of clubs here. That, again, when you start to think about like a cold calling range, sure. I mean, it's 1-3. The guy could have suited connectors, small suited types of connectors and things like that, right? like 7, 8 of clubs, but
Yeah.
it's probably a small sliver of that, not as much as you would think. And you have the ace of clubs, which means he can't have that primary flushing hand, which is the ace X of clubs hand.
Right.
Um, and I don't know if he's going to raise you just with the 10 if you bet again. And you might still get value from two pair. So I don't know if it's an automatic check
Okay.
because you have the ace of clubs. I think if you didn't have the ace of
Yeah.
clubs, it's that.
And
But okay,
I did think, if you raise, definitely, depending what he raised to or did, but there probably can continue just given with the ace of clubs and then top two pair have boat outs. But I wasn't sure that I that I didn't know if it was better to just let him start betting into things, thinking I was not really interested in continuing. But either way,
well, because
he did.
but I mean, if you take a look at like his calling range on the flop that isn't straights and flushes, I think all those hands are going to check back on turn. I don't know
Right.
if like a lot of two pair are betting, so I think it's actually closer than one thinks with the ace of clubs. But I assume you
Yeah.
call, right?
Yes, I did. Did you
Yeah.
do you agree the 50 seems kind of small if he's betting, trying to get value from me with something?
I don't know if he has a 10. I wouldn't put too much
Okay.
credence into that. So pot's 215 to the river. Okay.
Yep.
Uh,
And the river is a jack of hearts. So it
okay.
runs ace of hearts, king of clubs, jack of clubs, queen of clubs, jack of hearts.
Right. So ace of hearts, king of clubs, jack of clubs, queen of clubs. Again, here has ace king with the ace of clubs as straddle pot. Raises out a small blind. Straddle flat calls. Hero bets the flop call. Turns a queen. Check call 50. And now the board pairs here, which I don't know if you agree with me that most of the two pair hands are checking back on the turn. I don't know if the jack really changes much, except that it very well might have him check behind with like just 10, like,
Yeah,
king
I didn't
10.
think a lot of two pair would have been betting the turn.
Yeah.
Maybe because it's 1-3, I think that too also. But yeah, I agree that most of the two pairs probably would have just checked back turn. So I figured he had a flush or a straight. I'm not sure how many flushes, kind of like you mentioned earlier, that he can really have here. Except maybe if he has something like the 10 of clubs, 10-9 of clubs. If I don't know if he's as loose as, like you said, with those 7-6 of club type of hands. But I didn't think a ton of boats. This became a ton of boats for him, but I did check, and he bet 130 into the 215.
So hero checks, which I think is pretty standard, and he bets 150.
130 into
One
the 215.
130 into 250. And I can kind of see, as I remember from the email, where this one might be going, because sort of the theory of check raise bluffing the river is you're supposed to take hands that have showdown value and sometimes turn them into bluffs. And the reason why you do that, as opposed to like a total whiffed draw, is because if you have a hand that has showdown value, it might go check check and you win. If you have no showdown value, you can't win, right? So that's why usually like bluffing is more common. Like if you missed a draw, as opposed to going for a check raise on the river. Here's the thing, man. It's 1-3. Again, I'm kind of surprised if he has 10x here that he's going to be betting all that much. And I don't know if I want to try to bluff a guy that is betting a 10 here on the river. Because, again, what I say is like a lot of players at this level are kind of like showdown monkeys.
Right.
And they're incapable of bet folding a hand for value. So the way that they sort of subconsciously plug that leak is that they don't bet, so they won't be faced with a decision at the end. Like here, like if you bet the 10 and he's faced with a decision. So you'll see
Yeah.
people just check it back. So it kind of bothers me that he's bet here again. I'm not saying that your hand is, I'm not saying that you'd fold your hand, but if you're thinking about check raising the river, I wonder if his hand maybe does lean towards better than a 10. And if you're really just sort of targeting 10x to fold, again, my point would be that I don't know how much 10x bets. And if a player does bet at 10x, I don't know if he's capable of bet folding. Now, in theory, is your hand okay to do this with? Sure, absolutely. But this is sort of my low stakes take,
Right. Yeah. Which
Uh,
is ultimately, I feel, is pretty important because 90% of the situations, are not going to the other player.
plus you only have like 500 effective in stacks left. So he goes. Well, he's got 500 after he bets 130, so the pot is 345, and you've got like 630, so it would be like 1,500 for him to call, something like that. If I'm doing the
He
math right.
covered me. in the
What?
hand,
Yeah,
actually.
yeah. I mean, that's what I mean. Well, whatever. I'm talking about
Right.
effective stacks left. I mean, you've got like 630 to 650. So
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
still going to be getting 2 to 1. So I don't know if I would necessarily choose this one. Now, I did wash over and I said, is it just a fold? Oh man, because some people in the chat are saying like, is your hand really strong enough to call down
I,
here?
I wasn't sure, but and definitely in the time of the hand in the game, and in the day after I was thinking about it, I didn't think that there was anything really that he'd be betting that I beat to just call. So I didn't think. I thought calling was maybe even the third worst option. If that makes
Yeah,
sense.
like I mean, yeah, I mean, maybe it's interesting though with the ace of clubs because I don't know how many flushes he has. 9, 10 of clubs, of course, is a straight flush.
That's what I thought about. That would be like a 9-10 of clubs, which is
Hmm.
obviously no good for me. But if he could have 9-8, 7-8 of clubs, 6-7 of clubs, I
I,
doubt.
I don't think he's folding
I
those though.
doubt even,
Yeah.
yeah, 5, all that stuff is probably not there enough. But um,
I don't know. I kind of, I've just seen some wacky shit at this level that kind of makes
yeah,
me sometimes hard to fold hands, even though there is a one liner out there. But I can see what you mean with getting a fold. But as far as check raising the river, I don't know. It seems a little bit dicey to me for the reasons. What did you do?
for better or worse, I think that I use the two things in my mind to decide. I know he plays 2-5. I gave him maybe some credit to bet fold things or bet thin value. And then it'd been 2 hours playing with him, and I hadn't had a lot to play, hadn't been involved much. Some people, had made a couple nitty jokes and what have you. But I did decide to just go all in to try to fold out if he did happen to have any flushes or tens. Something like Queen 10 that flopped it, or even though I block it, maybe like King 10. But he, right after I jammed, he instantly just shook his head and said, "Why'd I bet?" And then took maybe about like 8-10 seconds and flipped over Queen Jack at folding it, which shocked
Queen
me.
Jack?
Yeah.
Oh my
I,
God.
I was shocked. I like made a face that I couldn't even help. I was like, "Oh shit!"
Wow.
Like that was unexpected and
Wow.
didn't expect that to happen. But
I mean,
um,
Queen Jack, I mean, with what you're representing, right?
he's
Queen,
like, "Oh, you have kings or aces," is what
right.
he assumed I
Right.
had. But
With what you're representing, Queen Jack is the worst boat, right? I
yeah,
mean, it is the worst boat
yeah,
that's
yeah.
on here with, so if you're representing a boat here,
Whether it's king jack, ace jack, or
right. I
even
don't know. I mean, would you ever play the nut flush draw like this? Probably,
mm,
probably not often where you just
right,
go
probably.
check
I did think
call.
about that. The friend mentioned that, and I said probably not.
Yeah, I mean that's really interesting. I mean, I would never. I mean, it's kind of so he's not betting it. He said, "Why did I bet?" Right, with even
Yeah,
Queen Jack, so he's not betting a 10.
so
And
much for my thought about him betting thin value.
I just never would have thought that someone would bet fold a full house at this level. So that is, I mean,
Yeah,
let me ask you this question: if you knew he had Queen Jack, would you have done that?
no,
No.
probably not. No, yeah, I don't think so. Because like you said, I just don't think it's part of what is so good about those games is just no one's got none of them. A lot of them are folding full houses, even though it maybe makes sense to. So
I'm gonna write Zebo theorem. That's an old theorem that said no one ever folds full houses, and I am shocked
yeah.
at that one. But that's a very interesting one. Whether you
Yeah, the
go
table was even like, "Oh, why'd you fold?" Because they had a high hand promotion going on, and it was like a dog shit queen's full house up
yeah.
there. And they're like, "Why'd you fold?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" They're like, "Oh, you high hand," and I was like, "What?" I was like, "I didn't have a high hand," and they were like, "Oh, yeah, right," and whatever. But
Now vindication in the live chat says, "Do you ever fold Queen Jack?" And I would say it really depends on the player. If I was in a spot like this, I'm really surprised that he bet the turn with Queen Jack. That's really surprising to me because I'm
after I
probably not
realized that was the craziest part to me as well. I was like,
because I'm probably not betting the turn. But I mean, I will say that there are some people that I might fold Queen Jack to if I didn't think they were capable of ever pulling this
yeah,
bluff. But it would probably tend to be kind of an older type that's just not bluffing all that much. But that's a really good one. I appreciate the call. Thank you very much.